Hello! Today we're going to be taking a look at what's in this exciting box, but just before we get into that, a quick reminder to please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it, comment down below, don't forget to subscribe, and if you can find that little bell icon, click on it, it might tell you when I'm uploading stuff. So today, we've got something a bit different. As you guys probably know, if you've seen any of my videos before, I have always flown using goggles. And I currently still have my Fat Shark Dominator Freeze, which I've just replaced the phone for, but yeah, these work quite well. I've always found it very immersive to use the goggles. It does take some getting used to though, and some people just don't get on with them, and these are the type of guys that may use this sort of thing. This is a screen called the Moneagle. It's a little 5-inch IPS screen which promises sort of very high brightness screen, which of course you're going to need outside. It classes itself as 1000 lux, which I don't know what it means, but you know, hey, this goes up to 1000, that's got to be good, hasn't it? Anyway, let's get it out of the box and see what's in it, because I want to obviously try flying with it and see how it feels. And in the box we have this little note saying, please charge it before you switch it on. There is a user manual, and we get the unit itself next. And this is really quite swish, it's nice and thin. It's got diversity receivers. It has got a DVR, and there's a little slot for your SD card. It has inside there a 4000 mAh battery which can be charged. I'm assuming that's like a 1S, but you can charge it from like 2 to 6S via this. It's a USB connector, but obviously you can put a lot more into it than the normal 5 volts. And it's 40 channels, and you've got a whole bunch of buttons that do things. You do note there's no tripod connection, because obviously you need to put it somewhere when you're flying. But let's have a look, see if there's anything else in here. Which is probably down to this sort of ball and thingy. It looks like that might attach and that goes in there somehow. I'll figure that out in a sec. And then there's a bunch of cables. Let's have a look what's inside here. So you get the little linear antennas, which we will not be using. This is handy. You get this XT60 to that micro USB to plug your batteries into. So as long as you've got an XT60 on your battery, it doesn't matter if it's 2 to 6S, just plug it on in, it's good. This one is a general USB to USB to charge it that way. This one is a phono to 3.5mm jack, which is going to go in that AV socket. I'm not sure if this is in or out. Figure that bit out later. Anyway, I'll get this charged up, and we'll see how this thing plugs together, and then we can take it out and I will try and fly from the screen outside. See how that goes. It's not brilliantly big, but I suppose you can just stand close to it. Okay, so we're all charged up. I've put the an SD card in here. If we power on now, hold down for 3 seconds, should come on. And the first thing you do notice is, yeah, the screen is very bright. I've got pretty bright lights here, and it does a pretty good job. Pretty functional in terms of the buttons as well. We've got some pretty obvious ones here. We've got a record, start, stop. We've got the band, the channel button, and this B- and B+ is the brightness. Up top here we've got the search, where it will go through all the channels looking for stuff. Power button, hold it down for 3 seconds, it comes on, hold it down for 3 seconds, it goes off. A light tap gets you to the menu, and you can carry on just tapping to go through these things. I'm not sure how the video modes between VGA, D1 and HD are different. We've got the format, we've got the reset, we've got repally, I guess that means it's the DVR. Yeah, but pretty basic there. So let's just turn something on. I've got a little quad here, it's the UZ65, great little quad, 1S thing. If we just turn that on quick, and let's point it over here. So right now we do not have a picture. What are we on? We are on R3. I happen to know this is on R7, but let's do a band search, see what it gets. So often I notice it will come up on something different. Let's see if it hits it this time. So it's gone to E5. So let's put it on the proper thing, which is band R and then 7. Now a few things I noticed. On my Fat Sharks, this is not off the screen. On this screen it is, and this tends to happen whenever I change around screens. There are things that either slip off the bottom or slip off the top, so you may have to adjust your OSD settings accordingly. But yeah, it's pretty nice. The picture's nice and sharp. I can tell I can pretty much angle it anywhere I want to, and it will get a picture, and it will go brighter than this. If I press the backlight button and I keep going up, it is a pretty bright picture. It's quite hard to tell the difference under these lights, but the fact it's not completely whiting out under these lights suggests that it might be possible to actually see it. And you've got that record button, so if I just press this, you'll see this little recording indicator here, and we can, where's my card? We can do that. We can make some weird stuff by looking at that. A bit of a close up on Yoshi there. There he is. And then we press record again to stop it. And the little thingy goes away. I'll just unplug this meantime. So now if we hit that and then we hit that channel button, it says DVR loading. It takes a little while to load the DVR, I have to say, quite slow. But once here, it comes up with our last recording. And then if we press these buttons, we've got basically the channel plus and the band plus button. We can cycle through what is there, and I deliberately put a couple of recordings in just so I could make sure that's how it actually works. That's interesting. On the recorded picture, you will notice it fits in the screen. Maybe it resizes it or something. Anyway, to play one of these, a little short press on the record button and it starts playing normally, and you can press these channel up buttons to go forward or backwards. Here's a 20-second clip, this is a bit better. You can use it to fast forward. It doesn't actually tell you, but it just goes forwards, or play that again because it was so quick. And if I press this one, it starts playing backwards, it starts playing forwards, press a bit faster, and backwards we go, and forwards we go. So, yeah, not bad. Seems fairly easy to pause at any point. Just press the button again and come out of that, hit return, well, hit power, and it will go back to the main screen. All good so far. The antennas here are RPSMA, so they have the pin in there and not there, which is kind of against the normal standard. But you know, you can get things, or you can get adapters to make them work. That's not a problem. I found the problem came when we're talking about mounting it. Here is the mounting thing. It has this bit, seems okay so far, which kind of goes over here in a sort of spring-loaded fashion. So you get this, and obviously you can either mount it one way up or the other. The problem is what this is. This seems to be some sort of bar mount, and it's got this little thing here so you can sort of loosen it and open that up and put it on something, and then put this down and it goes like that. The problem is I don't know what this is intended for. If I just get rid of the screen a second, my first thought was, it must be for this. Here's a bar and that'll go on there. Well, you can probably just see the size difference between the actual bar here and the amount there. You just can't compress this. It will just flop around like a loose thing. If it was intended for this, the other problem as well is if you put this on and you've got the screen there, then your angle you'd need is sort of like this, and then you've got this antenna in the way. So was that the idea? Of course, most sensible things would use a tripod mount at the bottom. Here's a pair of goggles I reviewed before, but they've got a sort of standalone screen. Tripod mount, perfect, works brilliantly. So honestly, I don't know what the intention of this is. I can't really mount it to anything easily. I mean, as luck would have it for testing, I've got this. This is something that basically connects to a phone to mount on a tripod, and if I just take this little ball joint thing out, swap it over like so, we've then got a tripod mount, and using that I can then mount onto a tripod like this one. Of course, this wouldn't be my normal choice for a tripod, but I'm kind of using the big tripod at the moment to film with. But that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to use that tripod mount to go out and see, basically can fly with this, see what it's like in the outside, see if this screen is clear, where I get enough detail, and whether I can use it. There is an AV input, so if you were using goggles, you could always put goggles into here and then record what you're doing on your goggles. That's good as well. But yeah, I think it's time to try and go and fly with this. Hello there, I'm at a new awkward angle, and that's because I've got a tiny little tripod for the camera where it would normally be on this tripod here, which you see has the Moneagle screen attached, and it's got a pagoda, which I've got one with an RPSMA. I've got the Menace Bandicoot patch here for linear, and that's got an RP SMA to SMA adapter on, so I can use that. And I thought, rather than go outside, because it's blowing about a 50-mile-an-hour wind at the moment, it keeps raining, and trying it the first time with a big quad, I could try it with a little UZ65 indoors, and it doesn't matter if I sort of bump into stuff and things. I've just been sort of trying out the position and getting the screen right. I'm sort of sat like this, the screen's straight in front of me. It doesn't look very big. There's a bit of reflection from the window behind me, so that's quite a good indication of, I suppose, how it's going to do in the light. But yeah, I thought I'd try flying it like this, and we'll see what happens. Pretty good picture. I can't really see reflections unless I really stare at them. There's a little bit of light coming in, but yeah, it looks alright. We should. It's really weird. I'm just like, okay, I should fly this. Where's my goggles? And of course, I'm not using my goggles. We should put record on, which is that button. That's recording. Okay, I'm going to try flying with a screen for. Well, I don't think it's the very first time, but it's not something I do. I'm still looking for where my goggles are. This is so weird. I'm glad I've tried this first, actually. Just got to get used to focusing on the screen.
20 seconds. 10.
Whoops.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now I
Timer
can't see the
elapsed.
quad in my peripheral vision. Things are getting a little bit easier. I can kind of get the idea of concentrating. Whoa, now that's interesting. We lost picture completely there on the screen. It's tricky conditions, certainly, inside the house. We can get something back. Occasionally it goes to blue, which is something to be wary of. Let me go get the quad. I think one thing to remember here, which I sometimes forget, is this is not the same as having rapid fire. So I need to consider that, especially when I'm flying in a difficult RF area like downstairs. So maybe not go into the conservatory. Keep it a little bit more local. Okay, so let's try that again. It's so hard. It's so difficult not to look at the quad. I can just see it in my peripheral vision, although I'm trying to look at this. It's so weird. Okay, it's out of my sight. When it's out of my sight, it's definitely better, definitely easier. So we won't go too far this time. Yeah, now I can't see it. It feels a bit more natural. Before then, it was just felt like I was looking at two things at once and looking at the wrong thing, it would seem. But this is absolutely fine. Now it's away from me. I just can't have it where I can see it. Else I'm in all sorts of problems. Whoops. Bit of a clunk there. Okay, for a little mirror look. Yeah, once I concentrate on the screen, I'm finding it very easy to look at it. I find it a little bit more tricky to look at the OSD, where I could just glance about. I'm having to be a little bit more deliberate about that. I suppose because I don't know as normally the OSD would be in a certain place around my head, and now it's in a different place. Let's see if I can actually fly around here without screwing myself up. So right, trying to get used to looking. No, I can see it. I can see it in my peripheral. It's dangerous. How weird. How weird. My brain needs a bit of training here. This is really odd. Okay. Oh, we're getting on to about 3.3 volts here, so I'll bring it in. I did not think that would be quite so weird in the way it messed with my brain there. It was fine when I could concentrate on the screen, I didn't have anything else around. But just having me look at this and seeing the peripheral vision of the quad just outside there completely screwed my head up. I couldn't do it. That's a really interesting test. I expect I'll get used to it. I mean, I'm going to bung a few more batteries through this, but I won't film it all just to see how it goes. But I think that's quite useful for taking it outside. A little bit of training, I guess. I guess guys that are used to a screen are used to a screen, and that's how they fly. For me, I've always used goggles, and it's really quite a mind shift, but very interesting all the same. Okay, so here we are. We've got the little screen ready to test out in the wild, and without realising it, I've only got my sunglasses, which is what I'd normally wear, but I realise that might not be best for the screen. We are kind of deliberately in the sun here rather than shade, because I want to see how bright it is. I figure if it's okay in the sun and I've got my sunglasses on, then it's probably quite bright. I'm going to be flying the Moneagle 5. I'll try not to let the fact I'll be able to see it put me off. Hopefully, if need be, I'll be able to switch easily from FPV to line of sight if I need to. I'm going to carry on just sat on the floor here because it's a bit breezy. I'm just going to look at it here. So I figure it might be, A, I don't think my tripod's high enough to stand up, and B, it might be a bit not being used to it. I don't want to sort of stand up. But let's give it a try, see how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to record this on here. It's looking like pretty good, I think. Oh, I can't seem to turn the brightness up and down if I got record on. Let's turn record off. Let's see if I can put... I'm going to put the brightness all the way up. Record. That is pretty bright. To say I'm wearing sunglasses and the sun's sort of behind me, that's not bad. So yeah, I'm going to try and fly that Moneagle. I'm just going to turn the last model alarm on. Right, I don't quite know what's going to happen. Concentrate on the screen. It feels relatively normal. Now we're going a bit. Well, the quick answer is I can certainly see enough. The reception's not bad. I've still got the Banggood on here, which is a linear patch, which is not the thing to have, obviously. But yeah, despite me having sunglasses on and the sun sort of being quite... Whoa, it's not good. Almost lost it down there. Yeah, I don't know how good these antennas are. Get decent antennas. These aren't the ones that I use on my my goggles. Now where am I? Oh, there I am.
3.
So the sun is beating down quite hard. I can still see it, and I don't think I'm recording the screen. I can't see the recording indicator on, which means I'm going to have to turn it on. I think it's this one. That's better. I wasn't recording, I should now be recording. Oh, I see, it says it's on RFB there. That's behind us there. So now it's changed to, oh yeah, I can see where it switches between RFA and RFB, which is interesting. I didn't see that Banggood antenna as being very good for this. There's me there. Yeah, I'm learning to ignore it. I mean, I'm not super confident in flying this. It looks very small, I think is one of the things I would say about it. I'm used to it sort of filling my vision, so it's a little bit worrying when you can see less. I just saw it go past my peripheral there. That was really weird. Let's do it again. There it is. Whoa, that looks so weird. I'm not used to seeing my quads going around like that. But yeah, the only thing I'd say about this is decent antennas needed. As soon as I'm getting a little bit further out, I'm not liking the reception as much. It's certainly no rapid fire, and I'm glad I'm not using those linears. I mean, the ones I've got up here, they're not great. This is like, you can see that pagoda's a bit knackered actually, isn't it? It looks a bit squashed, and the Banggood is obviously not the right antenna for circular polarized on the other end, which is what I've got. But you know, it is what it is. But yeah, the screen brightness is really nice. Oh, I just saw it again. That's so weird. It's still a little bit weird watching it go past. but I'm managing to concentrate quite hard on the screen. I'm pretty impressed with the
1 minute.
there's a little bit of reflection. Well, it's not quite a reflection, you can just see there's sort of a light bouncing off it, but it's bright enough so I can sort of tune it out, if that makes any sense. So if you concentrate hard, you could see a reflection, but if you just concentrate on what you're doing, that sort of goes. But I'm certainly surprised at as good as it is, bearing in mind I've got no sort of shield or anything over it. That's not bad at all. So my question is, do I try and land like this, or do I transition to line of sight? And I'm quite tempted to transition to line of sight, see how it feels. So that is, I've put it back into stabilised mode. There you go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this recording here, pop my goggles on, just take it a bit further out. I'll stay sitting on the ground to make it fair, and we'll see what the difference is. So off we go for the comparison, and if you're wondering if this is a fair test, I don't think it is particularly. The Fat Shark DVR is using the rapid fire module with a proper circular polarized patch and a decent pagoda. The Moneagle is using a linear patch and a kind of broken pagoda. So it's kind of like the best against the worst possible scenario we've got in the Moneagle. That said, the Moneagle actually kind of got slightly further than I thought. I was having breakup elsewhere. So this is at sort of 550 yards at the extent of the field. But it certainly didn't like it. And we could make things better by, you know, putting the tripod up and getting proper antennas. But, I mean, I would have done that, but of course it uses RPSMA, and most of my stuff is SMA, which is a really weird decision because kind of the industry's kind of settled on SMA, so it is weird that it's used that. But I just thought we'd show that comparison, not as particularly relevant or useful, but there you go, that's what it is. My normal goggles with decent stuff against a Moneagle with not very good stuff. Make of it what you will. Well, that was interesting to fly with, mostly the fact that I didn't know it would hurt my head so much, the fact I could see a quad out of the periphery of my vision and then have to think about two things at once. I've always said to people that if they're going to FPV, then make sure you go all the way FPV. Put your goggles on, take off, fly around, land with it. Don't ever sort of take off and try and get back to your comfort zone of line of sight flying. I mean, I actually landed line of sight there, but it really does screw your head up moving back and forth. It's difficult to go from one to the other. So whatever you're doing, line of sight, flying with goggles, flying with a screen, try and concentrate on what you're doing, just that one thing. Well, it certainly hasn't converted me, and I didn't expect it to, because you're either a goggles person or you're a screen person, I think. But I felt the sort of general, what it could do was pretty good. I really like the form factor on this one. It's nice and thin. You don't have anything sort of coming out to try and create a sort of shield from the sun. That sun, when I was on there, it felt like it was behind me because I could feel it on my back. Looking at where the shadow was, it was mostly from the side casting, but I think this is bright enough to actually survive out in the sunlight. Although, as I said, you do have to concentrate on what you're doing, and because there is a bit of reflection there, and if you look at the reflection you will see the reflection, but if you concentrate on the movement on the screen you will see that. Control's pretty easy to use. And the DVR I felt was particularly useful because it was very easy to sort of start, stop, go forward, go backward. Much easier than trying to figure out my goggles, which I always struggle with. It does actually record with sound, and if you play it back on a computer you will hear that sound. If you play it back on this you do not. One word of warning there. The Diversity RX, it was kind of okay. It was a bit hard to tell because the silly thing uses RPSMA and I've mostly got SMA, so we didn't have a particularly good experience, but this was down on the floor using not great antennas. I'm fairly sure if I had it up higher on a tripod and I had decent antennas there, I'd get a better range. It's not going to compare with something like the Rapid Fire because the Rapid Fire does something very special when it constructs the frame. This is just a sort of, this antenna's better, switch to this one, that antenna's better, switch to this one, your normal regular diversity. I found it a bit curious that the OSD didn't fit on the screen, and I was ready to sort of think about moving my OSD down, and then when I saw the DVR playback it did fit on the screen. I don't know what that's about, it's a bit weird. Obviously if you were using this as your primary screen you would move your OSD to suit, but it's just a bit weird that it didn't fit on. I talked to Eachine a couple of times, once about the actual resolutions because I was confused about what they meant and whether they would help me. They said that VGA is 640 by 480, which is your regular analog FPV, but then they said that D1 is 720 by 576, which I think is like widescreen PAL. But you didn't need to be in that mode to do PAL recording or NTSC recording. It just seemed to be okay. And then HD was 720p. But again, I can't think of an analog video, because this is normal analog video. I can't think of anything that would transmit on that. And I can't think of anything through the AV in that would work with a single composite input for 720p. So I don't know what they're talking about there. I tried it on the free modes and it just picked up my goggles as per normal. It didn't make any difference, so who knows what's going on. What I did feel when I flew this is a little bit disconnected from my quad. Obviously, I feel in goggles I'm sort of there because the picture's right there. Because this was even sitting close, it's a screen with a sort of a surrounding, you know, you can see things out your periphery. It's a smaller screen, and I kind of felt that I wasn't there with the quad. It was kind of just happening in front of me. I also didn't feel that sense of speed that I'd normally get in my goggles. I could see it flying along, but it didn't feel, it didn't have that immersion quality for me. But this is kind of more subjective, because people that don't get on with goggles will probably find that that's not a problem, because at least they can fly with the screen and they can't fly with goggles, you know. I do get the impression that people that use a screen may use something a bit bigger than 5 inches though, because you have to be pretty close. I suppose it depends how much you want to carry to the field and how you're going to mount it and stuff like this. I did talk about the mounted Eachine as well, because I couldn't figure out what it was for. I thought it was for going around a radio handle, but here's a typical radio handle, and this is it tightened all the way up, and it just flops around. But then they sent me a picture, and here's what it looks like, and it's like they've got hold of one single radio and decided that all radios are exactly like that, with a big thick handle and a little stubby antenna. That's bad for two reasons. I've got a lot of radios, and all of them that got the handle, they've got it this thick, and that just chunks around there. The other thing is about the antenna. Mostly I'd be flying with my antenna there because I'd be holding it there, and so I want the antenna sitting straight up to get the best signal. If I was to put the screen on this, it's going to hit my antenna, and because I want it sort of an angle that I can see it, and I can't see it like that. If I put that antenna all the way down and put it out of the way, then I can get to about there and I can see it, but of course I'll get a rubbish signal out of there. So it's just really weirdly thought out. There's nothing wrong with mounting a screen on this. I think the idea is quite good, but it's just it's so badly thought out. The fact that they've come up with this single one radio that this fits to, and just like, well, this is what all radios look like, surely. I don't get it. I would say that FlySky radio is the exception rather than rule about how it's laid out. But there you go. I think it's a really nice screen. I've taken it along because it's so easy just to pop in a backpack, and I can easily just hand this out to people that are with me and say, take a look, and they'll get a reasonably good experience from it. If you fly with just a screen, or perhaps you've done both goggles and a screen, you'll have to tell me if 5 inches is enough. It feels like enough if you're going to mount it on your radio, but we've discussed why that may not work. So on a tripod, I feel 7 or 9 maybe is possibly better, but I don't know. You guys tell me if you use it. Anyway, this has been the Eachine Moneagle screen, very kindly provided by Banggood for review, so thanks very much to them. And of course you can find links down below where you can check this out in more detail. Hope that review's been helpful, and I'll catch you next one. Bye for now. Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.